Bartolomei. I'm one of the owners of Lola's Dundee, and I'm honored. And I'm really honored to be invited to moderate this discussion about this fabulous documentary that we enjoyed this evening, and really get into the weeds about the challenges of the food system with my guests up here on the stage as we live these challenges daily. And now we have all of you who've been enlightened by this film to also talk about it. So I'm joined this evening by Angela and Kerry Knuth. Who you just saw on the screen. The Knuths have farmed for over 40 years and are the fourth, and he started when he could walk, basically, and are the fourth and fifth generations on their farm. Their sons are here with us this evening as well. So since 2005, the Knuths have undertaken the project of implementing regenerative practices on their land, and as the documentary covered in 2020, they started converting some of their farm to organic production. So I did a little digging, and according to the 2022 agricultural census, there is 44,479 farms in Nebraska, covering 44 million acres of land. And out of all of those farms, only 313 are certified organic in our state. So we are very privileged to have these farmers here who have lived through that process of converting some of their farmland to the organic process, and we're excited to hear a little bit more about that. So thank you for your work, and thank you for being here and joining this discussion with us. And then to my left, we have my very talented business partner, Corina Figueroa, chef and owner at Lola's, and Kathryn Justman, our kitchen manager and former cheesemaker turned chef. So welcome to both of you. As a small independent restaurant, Lola's thinks a lot about sustainability, definitely in the agricultural and farm sense, sourcing whatever we can locally and organically whenever possible, but also the strength and the resilience of the labor force that makes up our food system in our little restaurant and everywhere is very important to sustainability as well. And this has led us to make very intentional choices about our wage structure and tip pooling systems that we put in place in our restaurant, and to make sure that we're able to pay higher wages to the most number of people on our team. So today we're going to talk, this evening, we're going to talk a little bit with this panel about their experiences within the food system, in the farming industry and the restaurant industry, and then we're going to open it up to questions from you. So our friends at Filmstreams, thank you so much for having us. And they told me that we should not be afraid of really getting into the geeky details of both of these industries. So we promise to do our best in exposing the details. So Angela and Kerry, I want to start with you and ask you the first question. So in the film, you started in 2020 converting your portions of your farm to organic production, and talked about this 36-month wait time when you couldn't use the land at all. So that is a huge amount of time to wait and go without a return on your land. So I understand that the movie last connected with you in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Can you please share with us, and for those who might not be familiar with it, first a little bit about the process of going, getting organic certified and what that means?
Well, yeah, it is a 3-year process. It's the 3rd year you become organic certified, so that's when we did. So we, in 2018, 2019, in 2020, we actually had one farm that just kind of, we could raise it organic and we got our certification. But basically we chose to go with hay, with alfalfa. We had a rough year in 2019 with the floods, as we all remember, the floods of 2019. And so we didn't get much of anything off that land. And so same with 2020, you see the income stream that can come from the organic because the prices are so much higher, and we wanted to be better with our soil, so that's kind of why we chose to go that way, with some of it to, we wanted to do better on our farm.
But we didn't have a market for, we didn't have a market for, we put in alfalfa. And so we had to create or find a market. And then, plus we're looking at, yes, what could we have made if it was still conventional? So that's always in the back of your mind. So you're sitting there for 36 months without a market, you've got this hay, and I was so proud of myself that we were going organic, so it's great.
Could you give us a little bit more detail about what that type of investment meant for your farm and your family, and the challenges and benefits that might have accompanied it?
So, I mean, people do hay, so we thought, well, we can start out with an alfalfa and make money that way. The 2019 was a bad year because of the floods and the moisture. Because of that flood, we converted another field that we could not plant at all, so we got a payment from crop insurance for preventive planting. So we're like, hey, we're 1 year into it. We haven't sprayed anything on it. Haven't put fertilizers, so hey, that's 1 year into it. Let's roll with that one. Equipment-wise, the investment, as you've seen the manure spreader, that's when we're applying real feedlot manure to our soils to build them, something we wouldn't need. So an added expense of buying that to apply that. We're doing our organic no-till. So we didn't have to buy a lot of equipment, where some people really do have to buy a lot of equipment. So we're trying to keep it down to where we don't spend a lot to get to organic.
So, yeah, so the equipment cost wasn't the challenge as much as finding markets. Even when we were certified, we've taken grain down to Texas organic. And then with organic, if you do find a market, a lot of times you don't. So conventional, you'll harvest it, you can drop it anywhere you want, when you want. Organic, a lot of times they don't take it until they're ready for it. So that's a whole different model for us. And just I lost my train of thought. But I mean, just the whole dynamics of it is totally different than what we were used to. The stress levels are very high.
And when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that there wasn't a lot of guidance in how to go about this new organic track that you were used to. It sounds like it's not as convenient, and so tell us a little bit more about how you had to chart your own path.
So actually, the group that we were working with, that actually, how they found us for this movie, there was a guy by the name of Rick Clark, and he was farming no-till organic, and so we kind of chose his path. That's why we put the alfalfa in there, because that was his weed control, and we wanted to do no-till. And then so we planted, we shred that alfalfa down, and we put that corn right in there. And what did the neighbor say to you? When the corn, so they're both growing up together, and the neighbor comes over in his side-by-side and says,
You really think you're going to get an ear on that stalk?
so we had a lot of support.
We can relate. So I'm going to just jump over to the next question and go to you, Corina. So Lola's is our first restaurant, and you built it based on instinct and values. You and I made very specific choices when we opened about what type of ingredients and the quality of ingredients that we would be using, how we wanted to control waste, and how we wanted to pay people. So Katie and Corina, I wanted to get you to share with our audience how these choices have impacted our business in good and challenging ways. And maybe we can talk about the support we got too in making those original decisions.
Yeah, I mean, there's positive and negative impact, right? So the negative impact is that it's a very high-touch restaurant. And we have a lot of labor. We have our food costs are high, you know, because we buy things as best as we can. And, you know, we try to balance it. But then there's also the positive impact, which is we're part of this community of people that care, and I think they understand and they care what we're doing. So we get a lot of support that way. But we also have knock-on support.
Restaurants' margins sound a little bit like farming margins. As we learned, we don't have to take out quite as much capital normally each year. But yeah, restaurants are supposed to run 30% food costs, so all of the food that you put, or all the ingredients you put into your food is supposed to be 30% of what you make in a year, and then labor is supposed to be 30% also. So, or less, yes, less is always good. That is challenging for even conventional restaurants who buy everything from Cisco, but then making choices to purchase things from farms, purchase local, purchase high quality ingredients, costs can run higher. So those are some of the challenges that Chef struggles with and faces, and she does a fantastic job keeping things in line. But Katie, I didn't want to cut you off. You're next.
I had not started. So it's hard to cut me off. I think that something that is special about what we prioritize at Lola's is that I love walking into the place and I see people that used to help me hold my farmer's market tent down. We buy food from a lot of familiar faces that I just absolutely love that that's still part of my life. It also is what brought me to Lola's ultimately. Seeing these farms on the menu, and it's also just a daily practice for us that there is so much mental management of keeping waste super low, which is, it's just this, like, you don't factor it into your prep schedule every day, but it is a huge part of our life at Lola's, which is making sure that we're not wasting the beautiful product that we are buying from these people every day.
As I mentioned, before Katie came into the kitchen, she lived on a farm and was a cheesemaker. So the farm and the milk that you used for the cheese was certified organic, but you decided not to certify your end product. Can you tell us a little bit about that decision and what goes into it and all the things you have to balance to stay in business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I incorporated to start making cheese on an already established dairy farm in Raymond, Nebraska, that was already certified organic and the land was certified. And I operated for a year as a certified organic entity, but I found it to be prohibitive to making money. And I felt this moral obligation to be certified organic, and I felt an immense, I hate to say pressure, but I did put pressure on myself to do whatever I could to maintain that. However, most of the people I was selling to at that point were chefs. And I had established this trust with these chefs, and I felt at that point that them knowing that I was working with an organic product on organic land and I was using organic practices, that hopefully they would be chill. And in fact, it did help me stretch my time out at the farm a little longer. But it was this thing that I moralized a lot. It was a thing that I grappled with a lot, a decision that I didn't take lightly, because I do value organic certification. It was just that everybody's different. Everything is different, and honestly, it can be prohibitive to a lot of people to make the choice to be organic and spend the amount of money that it takes to get that sticker on your cheese.
Thank you. Angela and Kerry, did you find the return on going organic that you thought you would? How are things going now? And please tell us how your soil's doing.
Well, the return was there for each commodity, the corn and beans. The first year for corn, second year not so bad. The first year for beans, it was a home run. I mean, it was out of the park. But then the next 2 years, opposite, total opposite. So you saw how proud I was on the screen there that we were going organic, and now I'm like, did we put the cart before the horse? I'm not sure. So it's been a struggle. The weeds took a little bit, but now they're giving us the finger. And and we're trying to figure out still how do we stay no-till organic. And we've got some tricks up our sleeves coming this season. We talked about it earlier. We've got some bots coming in our field in 2025 to help with the weed suppression. That's a huge problem. So as far as the soil, we're learning. We're always doing the normal soil tests. We would take the soil samples, send them into Ward Lab and get our NPK. And now we're working with a company they're actually out of Colorado, Terraforma, and we're working in the soil food web. We're learning about biology and making our own compost and applying that extract. So it's definitely a learning process. So organic didn't take us where we thought we were. We thought we'd be vacationing in so now we're taking class.
So good on
and,
paper.
Yeah, now we're taking class and making our own compost and not going anywhere.
So you mentioned one neighbor. What did your other neighbors say, or other people in your community? Did you find any support, or?
We have one other neighbor that is organic. He started his organic process 1 year before ours, but he is full tillage, and we watch what they do. I mean, they're out there all the time, and they're getting burned out too. But we do talk a lot back and forth, so they're a good neighbor to have that we can talk back different markets, trying different things. They've tried a lot of different crops than we have, but sometimes they got burned because there's a market for organic 1 year, but by the time you raise it, because you're a whole year out, and then you're going, hey, I've got this product, you want it? We always get it on wheat. We always get the call, are you got any organic wheat? No, we don't. Should we plant some? Well, we don't know what the market will be next year. Our neighbor's done some, like buckwheat. They've done some, I'm trying to think of the other one they did, but they got stuck with it. and it's always a year out. So and you can't get contracts, no one does contracts.
And it's not just with organics. I mean, we started first experimenting with the non-GMOs. And even in that market, that'll be there 1 year, the next year it won't be. We've had a contract where they actually had to buy it out, but they didn't have a market. And then we've had to sit on a crop, a harvested crop in a bin for a whole year. So we put money out 2 years ago and we can't deliver. So, yeah, to just take it into the local co-op and drop it is way less stress.
Yeah. Yeah. How long am I supposed to, is Clayton here? How long am I supposed to talk before I open it up for questions?
Clayton, how long is she supposed to talk for?
Gives you 15 minutes on there.
Great.
It'll go to Q&A.
You told me and I totally forgot. Okay, well, I want to ask everybody up here what you think from the position that you're in, what are some of the greatest challenges facing the food system right now to making it more sustainable? So what are the challenges to making the food system more sustainable?
I would say for us, most of the time, we don't deal with the actual food system. We go deliver to a co-op, so we're separated. I mean, so after that, but as consumers and people that want to eat healthy foods, yeah, we would like healthier foods. We love what you guys are doing, and we would love to see more of that. I haven't set foot in a McDonald's for years.
Yeah, and I would say, so on our organic side, what we raise, if it's the corn or soybeans or wheat, it goes more toward the dairies or the beef producer. So we're not doing, like the Joneses there that are selling to the restaurants, but at least we have a part in the industry.
Well, from my time making cheese, I would say that my constant struggle was justifying the cost, constantly explaining that when Cisco mozzarella costs $4 a pound, like why on earth would mine cost $12.50 wholesale? Like why? And it's because I am making it and stretching it and packaging it and driving it in a Honda CR-V to Omaha. And
it's better.
Yeah, and it's better, it's facts. And it wears on you, it does. It's hard to justify to people repeatedly and tell them, this is why it costs this much, this is why. And then on top of that, when you deal with overproduction or when you deal with, especially with a value-added product, I mean, even though I'm taking a super highly perishable product like milk and I am giving myself a little extra time by making it into cheese, it's still perishable. You still feed some to the hogs, and that's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, justifying the cost of things, and it feels like the big people are too big and the small people are too small. Like, just how do you compete with that?
Yeah. It seems like the invisible parts of our food system, are really missed when consumers are comparing one product to another, like apples to apples, when they're really apples to oranges. Cisco mozzarella versus Katie's mozzarella, organic products or organic wheat to non-organic wheats, and having that price differential, and a plate of, roasted chicken at a restaurant, comparing one restaurant to the other, without knowing what goes into it or how they pay their workers or what they paid the farmers, just comparing the price point and treating that food just like a commodity makes it difficult for the little guys to compete with the big guys. I'd also like to add healthcare costs are very difficult to keep a system sustainable when the little guys lose employees all the time to corporations who can provide them healthcare. That always is one weakness, I think, in our system that keeps us from being more sustainable. All right, what did I miss here? I'm just gonna look over my questions here.
You're doing great.
Thank you. First time moderator. Yeah. I don't have any more questions. Let's open it up. I'm sure you guys have
It's time.
tons of
Time
questions.
to open it up.
Wonderful. If you'll just raise your hand, I will be running up and down these stairs to give you the microphone.
Well, I got the first microphone. Two-part question. When we travel, we're lucky enough to travel, we're just in Chicago for New Year's. Every restaurant has a line item for healthcare for the employees. That doesn't seem to be something that exists in Omaha. And then the second question is, I was sort of hoping there'd be optimism. And I don't feel like there's optimism. We try as darndest to be organic, and eat organic and eat out organic, but should we be optimistic?
Well, I think that you should be optimistic. Thank you for your question. I think you should be optimistic. I'm optimistic. I mean, all of you are here to watch a documentary about the food system and making it more sustainable. So right there's reason to be optimistic. And I think it was the chef from LA who was talking about the collective vision and being the little guys and a bunch of little guys working on in their own realm on the individual projects, but with this shared vision of where we're going. To me, that brings me optimism. So it's like, Lola's does this here in Omaha. Loads of other restaurants across the country are making decisions to pay workers better, to support local agriculture. And so that's happening, and it's happening in small pockets, but it's all happening. And so I think that it's super easy to get overwhelmed by the size of the problem as it was explained to us in this film, for sure. When you think about it all and you think about the big systemic change, I think that that's where it's pretty crushing. But staying focused on what we all can do as individuals and thinking about the collective of everybody's individual action, I think you could find optimism in that. But I'm a moderator. I shouldn't have answered that at all.
I thought it was a great answer, Claire. Yeah, it was. I also believe that there is optimism to be found. I think that also there is such an importance in understanding that failing leads to optimism. I think that, failing brought me back to Omaha. Failing is what brought me back to Lola's. Not back to Lola's, but to Lola's. I am happy that my life has moved in many different directions, and I also think that we as a society are, like Claire said, what's brought us here into this theater is that community and food are completely and totally intertwined, and it is it's essential that we view it as a community pursuit and a community struggle, and that we are thinking about food as the way that we think about helping each other, helping a neighbor.
I was just going to say, are you want to be optimistic about organic, or you want to be optimistic about nutrient-dense food? because it doesn't equal each other. And we don't mean to be negative on the production side, but it does tie our hands. And it's not actually giving nutrient dense, because some of those soils, after it's been tilled to the bejeebies, there's not a lot of good biology in that soil. So we got to balance that word organic. Got it. You know, it's the king, but it doesn't necessarily translate into the healthy food that we're all looking for. And we're loving that word regenerative. You know, it was sustainable first, and then it was regenerative. And that's taking an approach at, okay, so maybe now and then you might have to spray something, but at least as possible, and you're trying not to disturb, and you're trying to build the biology. Organic doesn't really look under the soil, it's just on top.
And I don't want to lose the second part of your question about the healthcare line item on the check and menus. We were just having a conversation about what some restaurants do and put out there in larger cities like Chicago, like New York, like LA, and including that, you know, that information about what either gratuity or tips, wages are used for, and how restaurants pay workers. We have been talking a lot about including that information on our menus at Lola's. Unfortunately, as the small business that we are, we just can't offer health care to our employees at this time, but we do take a lot of care in how everybody gets paid in our restaurant, how much they make. We strive all the time for high wages, livable wages, and work very hard to make sure that that is part of our team, and offer assistance in helping our team find healthcare coverage from the resources that are available, including the marketplace. So people who might be afraid of navigating that or unsure about that. So, but we would love to be the first restaurant in Omaha that put something on our menu about how much maybe gratuity we're adding to the check, or even taking away tipping. Like if that maybe is in our future, we would love to be the first one to do that. But so we're working towards things like that.
Let's stay positive.
I have a question for the Knuth. When I hear you're from Meade, right away I think of the environmental disaster that is the ethanol plant. And so I'm wondering, how has that affected your farm and your family's health?
Our farm is actually a mile and a half west of that. Luckily, we're west of it. We're not downstream as the water flows to the south. So we got by with that. But it did, just from that, the odor in the area. Rarely we get an east wind, so we didn't actually get it at the farm, but the town of Meade has suffered big time. And health, we don't know. It's been going on for 6-7 years now. We'll see what comes out of it. But I'm glad they're cleaning it up. They're taking their time at it, but we're glad it's getting cleaned up and resolved. I hope something happens to those that continue to let that happen, but we'll see what happens.
Thanks for being here. What I heard you say is there an incentive to pursue organics or pushing it even further to regenerative is really a market-driven thing. Like, people will pay more. This is both in the restaurant and farming industry. I'm wondering if are there any other incentives that exist that incentivize either to take land to be regenerative or to serve healthier foods, whether that's government incentives or I suppose there's moral incentives, I don't know, but is there other things that just we can make more money in pursuing the things that are right for society?
Yeah, on the farming side, huge incentives, our major costs are inputs and equipment. So if we can reduce those, we're gonna make more money. And that was a big part of the reason to go to organics, because you don't have the inputs. We just didn't know the weeds would be so terrible. Yeah, so those are huge incentives. We're just not modeled for it, and that's why we were talking about earlier, we're gonna try these bots. Because we can, we can control the weeds, and we're working on, like we said, we're building, making our own composts, and we've got, you can do the fish, so there's natural means of putting things on there. So yes, there are huge incentives on reduction of inputs and equipment costs.
And there are some small groups out there that are, wanting you to go to organic, not so much, maybe they don't help you in a cash flow sense, but they'll help you find markets and things like that, but not the government. No, they're not into that. And we don't really want government help, that's not what we're after.
Right, I think we have time for one more question. I'm coming down to the front.
I can borrow Angela's microphone. Yeah. If you, unless, there you go. Okay. This is a good question for all of us to take away and just start. How do we impact, right? All this whole panel has mentioned compost. It's something very small and minimal, but I go home now and I have some vegetables that I cut up for dinner. How do I compost? I know how to do it, but like, how do I meaningful it, make sure it makes an impact, that the food goes to something and not just into my trash? Is there like a community resource that we can reach out to, or? Hillside Solutions.
Okay,
there
we
go, thank you, that's my answer. Okay, thank you.
They have a guide, they have all kinds of great information.
Okay, so my question If you was- can't hear, Hillside Solutions, Lola's uses them as a composting solution.
And Film Streams does too.
Yes.
Oh, your popcorn bags
Also,
are
I would really
compostable.
suggest looking up vermiculture for your house. Little worms, they're great. You really should, just look it up. I don't know, they're fun.
This is like kind of like a cliche question. I don't know, I feel like it is, but what would advice that you feel like the biggest takeaway of like owning your own business, like what would you tell young aspiring business owners? Because like obviously when I hear all this stuff about, I feel like I was optimistic, very optimistic, but there was a thin line between optimistic and like being completely naive and in over my head. Like I felt kind of defeated at one point. Like I was like, I really want to be a part of the community, but I know there's a lot that goes into it, and I see businesses that open and they close just as quick as they open, and it's like really sad to see, because I love supporting local businesses, but I want to stay open. I don't want to fall flat on my face and put a whole bunch of money into something that may be far-fetched. I don't know. So
Advice, huh? I would say that being a little naive can be helpful. Corina and I had never owned a business. We'd never started a restaurant, and it's enabled us to make certain decisions that were more rooted in our values and principles rather than in business sense. We also don't have business degrees. So we were outside of that box, and living outside that box helped a little bit. It helped us connect with our vision and drive to that. But then on the other side of that coin is just know that it is a lot of work, and you can do it if you're committed to it. And watch out for real estate. Don't pay too much in real estate.
Also, my business failed. And it wasn't the end of the world. I just want to be so real with you. I incorporated at 24, and by the time I was 29, I moved back to my hometown. Ouch. And it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't. And like, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from it.
Where you start is not where you end.